All right, welcome back. We are continuing our conversation about the procurement process and the figures all over the place. So we do have NOB here with us. She's the former country director, Action Aid, former convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, as well as Olusegun Elemo, who is the executive director, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. Thank you both for coming on today. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, Mr. B, let me start with you. This scenario, ever since the news has been out there, what have you found?
I think for me it's a very good development, to have, citizens trying to track, not just from the opposition, but citizens trying to track, what is happening in governance. That's accountability. It's about holding government accountable, and if everybody is waking up, or this is a process that has been started a long time, and I think I'm really excited because I lived in Lagos for over 20 years, and the governance issues in Lagos in terms of activity level or people trying to hold government accountable is not just a beginning. Lagos state government is one of the states that started upload in terms of their budgets, onto the internet. So it's a good thing that the government, even the governor, is welcoming, is having that openness. We have budget tracking, having the budget of the year and people just letting things go. I think is now coming out, and the signs that is coming out from Lagos is also something that everybody needs to look around. It's just a sign from Lagos State. What about the other states? What about the things that people have done in the past? You find items that are on the budget that are just they're just not there. And if you backtrack, go to so many states, budgets, many items that you see this year, you see it last year, the year before, or so many 10 years down the line, and nobody is querying it. So this is the beginning of a good thing to happen. I think people are now getting to settle down after the general election and all of that. And so what we have found is, you see, somebody is the insensitivity of government. I think a lot of people, in terms of trust, in terms of the poverty level, Nigeria still, they try to defend it, but Nigeria still is the poverty capital of Nigeria, of the world, where you have a lot of poor people, where you have the indices in terms of maternal mortality or child mortality, in terms of health, gender responsive public service, and the issues of life expectancy in Nigeria and unemployment in Nigeria. And then you find it's good that we're putting all of this in the public domain, that somebody is not just starting from here, it started from the National Assembly, the amount of money that they want to use to buy bulletproof vehicles and all of that. And now you have a chief of staff having to have, these are things that may have even gone 440.7 million for a car in a place that people are going to bed hungry every night. If you take that to a town or a semi-village or a local government, you know how the transformation that will happen in this land. I think our leaders are so far, away from the lead that they are not understanding what is happening. They are young people who have not had a job for more than 7 years, who have graduated and are qualified. They defend that some people are not qualified, but what about the qualified people? And so you have these people, and then you are taking a whooping sum to go and buy a car. Where is the road that you are even passing? Nigeria, we don't have good roads. A lot of the roads, they are trying, but Nigeria is a huge country. If you are serious about development, roads and such infrastructure is not even under debate anymore. It's taken that you have good roads and you have electricity, you have the issues of unemployment. Many of our industries fell down. I remember when the textile industries were going down, about 70 billion was what was requested just to refund some of it. But we're having all of these things going down. So what we find is more activity, and we encourage civil society organizations, citizens in every state of Nigeria. The closest government to the people is even the local government, which has been sort of mutilated so much. And the money that is going down there is also the same thing. They come and gather and share. The issue of corruption is real. I'm happy that the governor, appreciates and welcomes the discussion, but let the discussion go on. Okay, because just like what was said earlier, if you put 2 billion instead of 2 million, it adds up at the end of the day. So what happens? Who approves? So let's pay attention to budgets.
So Segun, as somebody who has been involved in accountability reforms for subnationals, does this pass the accountability test for you?
No, it doesn't really. And there are many factors at play. Let me just say that what Mr. Duhati brought out is nothing new from what civil society have been doing for many years. Only that he also acknowledged it because he's a politician. He's able to throw some political weight behind findings that
civil society weight.
Oh no, people don't really take us seriously, and I said that jokingly. But if people take us seriously, we're putting all of this information out for many years. There are many credible organizations. You can talk about budget, you can talk about connected development, you can talk about PLSI, you can talk about a few others, who work in the public accountability ecosystem and use fiscal information. And like what Madam Enobi said, we do tracking, and look at all of this budget information to procurement, to audit. What I see, that is wrong, and I keep saying it. Lagos is supposed to be a model state, and if Lagos doesn't pass the test of accountability with the huge resources that is available to it, I mean, you see the IGR shooting up every year. You see federal transfer, shooting up every year, and then you see how funds are managed, and it's not so much translating to development compared to the amount of money that is available to the state when you look at what is on the ground. Again is that when you then look at, for instance, what the state, how the state responded. To our subnational audit efficacy index, for instance, in 2022, which we presented earlier this year, the state came, 18th position and scored 36.
So let's have a look at that now. So that was for 2022.
Yeah, that was for 2022.
And the ranking, you say, it was 18th.
18th position.
And the score was
36%. And you could see that the score was very
31.
31%.
Out of what is this? 100?
Out of 100. Out of 100. And that 18th position is actually because many states also did not perform very well. When you look at the preceding year, which is the 2021, you saw that the state came 35th position. The only reason Lagos State came 18th position in the last assessment was because the Public Account Committee actually responded to some of the information that we requested. But we have started conducting the assessment for the 2023 SA Index, which we will present in the first quarter of 2024. And let me just put it out here. We have received response from over 90%. I mean, 90% of the states. We assess all the 36 states, and over 90% of the states have responded. But Lagos State has not responded.
Give us some background in terms of the methodology
indicators
for this index.
So, for instance, what we for the 2022 assessment, we employed 8 parameters. In looking at the parameters, the audit legal framework. And for the audit legal framework, we're looking at the financial autonomy for the Office of the Auditor General, as well as administrative independence for the Office of the Auditor General. Lagos State does not pass that test. So you could say that the procurement agency is independent, but is the Office of the Auditor General independent? And this is the foremost accountability institution that the Constitution recognizes. Section 125 is clear. If we are not practicing democracy, let's know we are not practicing democracy. But the drafters of the Constitution did not envisage that we are going to, at one point, be setting up anti-corruption agencies. And that states will be setting up anti-corruption bodies. Democracy is self-healing. Let nobody talk about that democracy cannot, translate to development. The democracy is self-healing, and all those instruments of development are embedded in democracy. The only problem is that we are not practicing democracy in Nigeria. No.
Democracy.
Yeah, that is the point. Now, that's the first parameter. So Lagos State does not pass that. The annual report of the Auditor General that is supposed to be submitted to the Parliament, Lagos State does not pass the test. The Citizens Accountability Report that is supposed to be published annually, Lagos State does not pass the test. The full audit report, not the audited financial statement. I keep saying it everywhere. There are two distinct documents. The audited financial statement is different from the audit report. The audit report contains domestic findings of the Auditor General as to how public funds have been utilized. What you see in the audited financial statement are just breakdown of quantitative data.
So they don't give the full budget.
They
don't upload the full budget.
They are there. It's not out. You can ask the Office of the Auditor General for Lagos State. Where is the audit report for Lagos State for the last 10 years? Can you show us where they are? Where are the domestic reports that are submitted to the Parliament? What did the Parliament find out through its Public Account Committee? And where are the queries of the Auditor General on how funds were utilized in Lagos State? I mean, that's the function of the Auditor General.
So is it that this appears to you, based on these parameters, as carefully choreographed?
Absolutely. And that's what we're saying, that if we want to see development, whether in any sector, whether in education, health, whatever sector you talk about, you have to look at how public funds, for instance, how public policies are crafted, and from that policy instrument emanates budget documents, procurement information like Mr. Doherty is bringing out, and then audit information. It's a chain, and all of these leads to something.
So, for the avoidance of doubt, if they wanted to disagree with you, what are the criteria that you expect them to meet in order to pass this accountability test?
Number one, financial autonomy for the Office of the Auditor General. We need to see that, and we need to be able to independently verify that the Office of the Auditor General is getting its funds first line charge from the state's joint account. Move straight. You don't treat the Office of the Auditor General like a clerk or like a petty cashier. No, that's how it's been treated. Number two, administrative autonomy for the Office of the Auditor General. The Office of the Auditor General for Lagos State must be able to hire, fire, discipline, recruit its personnel without any interference at all from anybody. That office is only answerable by Section 125 of the Constitution. The Constitution is supreme. To the House of Assembly through the Public Accounts Committee. It is not answerable to the governor. Yes, the governor can appoint based on the recommendation of the board and then the approval of the State Assembly. But that office is only answerable to the State Assembly. Then again, the annual report of the Auditor General submitted to the Parliament annually. The full audit report published online, not the audited financial statement. The Citizens Accountability Report published annually. We want to see elements of civil society and media participating in the work of the public accounts and that of the Auditor General. Those are the elements we want to see. And until we see that, before Lagos State begins to pass the accountability
do you
test.
buy, what about the explanation that the governor is, some consider it an explanation about those figures, saying, look, it's an Excel spreadsheet error, so it shouldn't be taken out of context?
I think it was Ayo who was saying that he could accommodate 1 0, 2 zeros,
Yeah.
But when zeros continue to manufacture themselves, you want to. Again, is that yes, there could be human error in how data are imputed into the spreadsheet, but certainly not that kind of extensive error. If you want to write 20,000, you certainly cannot write 200 million in place of 20,000. So you certainly cannot write 2 billion in place of 2 million, they
are far apart. Basic usage, if that figure differs there, you see that bottom line.
Because before you get to 2 billion, you get to 200 million. And so once you put 200 million, the total figure changes. And then again is that what you are putting must be in conformity with the budget that was approved for that agency. So once you see that, I mean, the way the spreadsheet works is very simple, very, very simple. You can see at a glance. Once you see the agency, the particular agency, there is an approved sum headline.
Definitely.
And if you see the breakdown,
the figures differ.
Exactly. So when you put the breakdown at the total, it will differ from the headline. So you'll be able to flag it easily to say, okay, there's an error there. And then you look at the line items, where is the error? So if we're actually diligent and ensuring and trying to ensure that we're actually accountable, these are things that we'll pay attention to.
I wanted to also ask you if you, because before now there had been questions as to whether or not or how transparent the Lagos State government was with regards to its budget. I know that you have been very big, and you and PLSI, you have been very big on auditing, and that's where you've done a lot of the work that you've done as civil society. But do you also pay attention to the budget of not just Lagos State government, but other subnationals?
No,
and what do you find?
No, absolutely. You see, because before you get to audit, you move to budget. And like I said, before the budget, you look at the policy statement, you look at the policy direction of the government. That's where the budget emanates from. And then you go to procurement, and then come to audit. We look at the budget. And for instance, we see credibility issues around the budget. For instance, you see differences. Now, not just in Lagos State. It's a national problem. It's a national problem. So we're not isolating Lagos. We're only just focusing on Lagos. You said
credibility issues.
No, certainly.
Manipulation or what?
No. See, when, for instance, you put up a budget, you know that your capacity to generate revenue, for instance, is maybe 50 billion. Not even, how many states even do 50 billion? Maybe 20, 30 billion. And then your federal transfers, maybe total, maybe 70 billion. So maybe 100 billion, inflows, for the whole year. And then you craft a budget for 300 billion. That gives you a sense. You want to go borrowing. You want to go, and then, you just be, reckless about borrowing and keep borrowing. And then sometimes you don't even get the borrowing, because what is the liquidity of the state to be able to pay back the borrowings? So you then realize that and that's where the problem now is. You then realize that chief executive of state will not now focus on capital spending that is of priority to citizens, because the funds do not come in. And you have crafted the budget in such a way that allows you to spend on operations, to spend on overhead, to spend on salaries, which is of priority, I understand. But when the funds now start coming in, you then pay more attention to that and leave the funds that you've allocated to capital spending with not cash backing it. And then again is that what then happens? You then continue to see this development deficit, on the ground. And that's a problem with budgeting. But again is that the concern that we've always had with budgets, and I always say it, it's not enough to say you have allocated monies here and there. Even the ones you have allocated, how have you utilized it? And what is the delivery on the ground in terms of development? If you said you wanted to intervene in healthcare, in education, and you would see that when you compare monies that are allocated to development sectors, and you compare it with what is provided for salaries, overheads, and emoluments of politicians and political appointees, there's that huge variance.
So those figures are available. I mean, there have been those who say, "Oh, we don't really see a breakdown of the budget of the Lagos State government."
No.
They
are available now. They are available now. But what I'm saying is that that is not. It's a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. Mm-hmm. The point is what happens after you've provided the budget data.
So usually, what people have problems with are with the line items. So you can see right there some of the snapshots that have gone viral, allocation for fragrance, and then, those are the controversial figures which the deputy governor has debunked in terms of things that have gone to
the wife of the deputy governor for
outreaches.
Yes, outreaches. And he, even though he said, look, that's not how much has come to the wife of the deputy governor, there are people who have said, oh, should you even have those kinds of things in the budget in the very first instance? So, and then when you also look at things like SUV, bulletproof SUV in the office of the chief of staff, some people will also say, what are we doing with that? One. And then if you look at the cost of it, assuming we really needed one, assuming one were to be justified and was defended that, or one was really needed, would it really be at that cost? So are there ways that we are able to check and balance? Are there ways we're able to, is there a defense mechanism whereby people are made to defend some of the things that have been requested or have been assigned in the budget, and then also check the figures that are really given to those things in the budget?
No, certainly there are. You see, when people, so for instance, budget is an estimate, and that's why, it's an estimate. It's an estimate. So you really cannot, hold people to say, oh, when you say budget item, and because in budgeting, you provide for inflation, you provide for so many contingencies. And that's why it's called an estimate. Where the problem now is do you have a procurement process that is competitive, that allows allows every ordinary citizens, to play in that space, such that when you open up a bidding process, everybody can apply. And then what is the process like in terms of transparency in selecting who wins the award at the end of the day? Those are the real issues, and that's where the procurement laws need to be looked into very critically. To say, okay, yeah, the budget is an estimate, but when you come to procurement, when you open up the bidding, do you allow everybody to come in to say, okay, I can give a competitive price. If someone is going to deliver at 400 million, I can deliver at 250 million. And then who then do you go for? And that's where you now begin to assess, the value for money element. Then when your auditor now comes in and asks question, why did you go for 400 million against 250 million? Those are the issues.
And they are very important issues, because considering how states clamp down on businesses, on companies, people work really hard to pay taxes. So these questions have got to be answered really. But let's go to Lagos. I just got questions and go to guests as well.
And we have with us here Mr. Kolawole Oludare, who is a good governance advocate, and he's also deputy director with SERAP. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
I know you have quite a lot of things to say to this, but let's begin with the fact that first of all, let's identify the fact that we indeed invited the Lagos State government. We are still waiting for confirmation of sorts to ensure that, just to put that out there, that we attempted to quite significantly too between yesterday and today to bring the Lagos State government representatives into the studio, but that has not happened yet. However, these issues need to be raised. Let's begin with the response, or the comments of the Lagos State House of Assembly ordering a probe into this whole melee. They have invited the Lagos State Procurement Agency for conversations. What do you make of that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's very important to underscore that this issue, as we've seen in Lagos State, and it's pervasive, it's a national issue, is an issue of transparency and accountability. This is not about politics. And within this concept of transparency and accountability, we understand it is a means to good governance. There are various stakeholders, call them players, signal players in a democracy. The House of Assembly also had a process initially. And now the process they want to undertake now, it's laudable, it's good. But again, it shouldn't be reactive, because they also have oversight processes. So let's look at the budgeting, for instance. The budget naturally was presented by the governor to the State of Assembly, who have the power at that time to look at the line items, to even call the ministries, departments, and agencies to defend whether this amount should be on the budget at all, and as so amount. They have that power at that time. And they also have power to inquire of the executive, how do you hope to fund this whole budget? If that has passed that stage and that budget has been passed, and now the implementation, don't forget, even the procurement law of Lagos State 2021 as amended also went to the State of Assembly. So the State of Assembly has a wide view. If you ask me, they're at a vantage point. So if they are ordering a probe now, The question is, what did they do initially? Can they retrace their steps to see what had gone wrong and where? And like I've mentioned earlier, this is not certainly limited to Lagos. It's everywhere. So I think it's very important that we look forward to the result of this probe. But I fear that it becomes another knee-jerk reaction. Perhaps we can even call it tokenism. And let them keep quiet. Let's do it for a while, and then possibly it will go away. But the commitment of the State of Assembly will be seen during that investigation. You call it an investigation, I don't think it is. To see how they're able to look at all those steps to harmonize it, including the process of procurement itself and who has gotten what, when and how. But if the State of Assembly was there when over 400 million was budgeted to buy a Jeep, so which questions are they going to ask now? Is it about the volume, the quantum, or about the procurement process that would have led to acquiring that? And again, so that is much more important than this act of tokenism that I think this is.
I actually, now when you mentioned the 400 million naira SUV, it brings to mind some of this, a portion of this document that I saw, which has quite a number of items listed under the office of the Chief of Staff. And I want to believe that that would be referring to the office of the Chief of Staff to the governor. And it's quite a number of things, a good number of them, you know, in billions and tens of billions and all of that. I don't know much about budgeting. Is that the right way to go about those things? Because some of those things, for instance, some of them are probably going to local governments, some of them to some other offices and all of that. What do you make of that? Is that a proper process, you know, in terms of accountability?
It's very important and it's very good that we're talking about this now, which is why citizens should have been involved in that process in the beginning, which is why, again, that budget went to the National Assembly, the State of Assembly rather, pardon me, and it is believed as part of their functions of passing that budget, which was, I think, was over 1 trillion at that time in 2022. They had looked at all this. They have the power not only to look at figures, but even to look at line items, to ask questions. Did they ask those questions then? And I think it is really important that Nigerians ask them this question. And like I've said, this is not limited to Lagos. So if you look at the good work that civil society organizations have done, I would like to refer to the work of Budget in this instance. You go to the website that they've created, put all the budgets of Nigerian states there. You would see that, for instance, in the 2023 budget in Osun State, 6 billion was allocated to the office of the governor. That's the budget. We've not seen the procurement to see how that has been spent. Also, if you look at Delta State, Delta was 22 billion to the office of they call it the protocol office. So again, these budget lines, because these are appropriation laws, as it were, went to the State of Assembly and they were passed. But Ayo, what do you expect when even the federal government is towing the same line? I don't want to say they are towing the same line, they set the pace. We are yet to recover from the money that was budgeted for yachts. We are yet to recover what happened under the Buhari administration about the huge chunks of money that was related to the State House Clinic, which, as investigation found out, wasn't even well at the normal infrastructure. So it will become something of what the Yorubas will say, if you pardon me, Mr. Ayo, of Egbini Ote. And to those who don't speak Yoruba, that would mean that an offshoot, you are killing someone, another shoots up in his place. So we shouldn't be surprised. This has gone on for long, and it would appear that the impunity continues to grow in the absence of rule of law.
You haven't really spoken to, okay, so let's look at some of these slides. I think the two that many people find quite significantly infuriating, if I can use that word, is one of them which you have mentioned. 440.7 million naira budgeted for procurement of a brand new Lexus 600 LX bulletproof sport utility vehicle for the office of the Chief of Staff.
So, and that's what I've mentioned, Ayo. This budget went to the State Assembly in Lagos. They looked at it and they approved it. So if they are conducting an investigation, are they into the amount or how much it was bought? And that is why in this instance, when we talk about
perhaps even the function of it, is that to say that there is,
of course, they have the right at that time to look at it, which is why they call it budget defense. They have the right to call the various MDAs, including the office that is meant to use the car, to ask, why do you want this car? Why this particular car? That is why they represent Nigerians in that bit. And don't forget, budget, when it is passed, becomes law. It is appropriation law. So at that point, they have the powers to do so. I doubt if they did a good job of it, if that has passed as budget. And so that answers the question. So if it is infuriating Nigerians now, then we should ask questions. Ask the Civil Assembly questions. Why did they pass it when it came before?
I mean, maybe the reason I'm raising, okay, for instance, look at the other one, because people are just going to continue to ask the questions. Look at the monthly service charge for cleaning of the Lagos House and Presidential Lodge Marina, VIP Lodge, and Parkview. 15.3 million naira times 12.
I can't do the maths. It's beyond my level of mathematics. And that has gone on for long. Again, not only in Lagos, but across Nigeria. Do you wonder why we're broke? And there's something I need to point out. It is a good development that we have these budgets to look at this time, but we also need to look at history. In fact, it took the intervention, and I call it intervention, something of a paradox, of the World Bank through what is called the SIFTAS program, States Transparency and Financial Accountability Program, to encourage Nigerian states to be transparent and accountable, including, among other things, to put their budgets online. The program ran from 2018 to 2020. That is one of the major reasons why we have these budgets, even in the public domain. And there was a facility of $750 million to encourage and motivate state governors to do. Does that not show you what we understand as democracy? So in the practice of that kind of democracy, of course, naturally, we will see this kind of issues.
You know, let me quickly ask you, Madam Eneobi, because, you know, a good number of these issues, you know, that people are irked about. People continue to wonder what in the world we're talking about, Madam Obi. So now that this is out, it's another time that budgets are being prepared. It's another time that states, you know, are preparing their budgets for presentation to their houses of assembly. The question that I'd like to ask you is, how? We know we're supposed to pay attention to what the states are doing, but the question is, how should the people be doing this? When we talk about accountability, to a large extent, many people are looking at the federal government, looking at the president, looking at the National Assembly. Hardly do people look at the states and the states' houses of assembly. How would you suggest that people will begin to call their governments out in the name of accountability?
Thank you very much, Ayo. I think a lot of things that is happening is about the issues of the procurement or the issues, even the budget process. How does it start? I was a governance team leader for Action Aid for a couple of years, and the public finance analysis, we started the issue of looking at or having budget summits every year. You know, at that time, we're having budget summits every year, and we're having it at the states where we also had projects, and then we go into the national, you know, budget summit. When a lot of people are not taking the budget very seriously. We have seen cases where in some states in this country, budget as bulky as it is, that budgets were passed overnight, meaning that members of the assembly do not take cognizance of the importance of the budget as a document. The budget, once it's passed, is a law. And before you pass it, as a parliamentarian, have you taken your time to look at the budget? One of the processes we used to do as civil society organizations is to look at the budget of the past year, the current year, and then the next one, so that we're able to project certain things. And in the acts of budget monitoring, you are able to see if you can have that document of the past year and the year that the current year and the year that is coming. You are able to make projections. You are also able to look at some line items that are down. We are looking at the documents, you know, from the Lagos State now. You're looking at, you know, when they say the office of the deputy governor's wife. Is it the deputy? You know, I don't know if there is an office like that. But having 36 million every month, that is amounting to about 432 million in a year. And then you are looking at also the servicing that they are talking about, servicing of even meetings, committee meetings, 30 million per, you know, annual or monthly, and then it gets to that. So you are able to pick up line items. Budget is a live wire of an administration. If you don't take it seriously, the way we take it, that in 2 days, if the government is able to send the budget, they make a budget presentation, I advise that the government, the parliament will take their time, go through that. And that's why in the case of even the bigger, the national parliament, if you are not looking at the budget, then so many things can be swept through the carpet. There is one line item that if you check the last 10 years of an administration, those documents will be there. The corruption level. And we're looking at people dying. If you're not paying salaries, if the inflation that is happening is causing the death of so many people. Yesterday, I had to, the lady who had a baby and they have been discharged for almost a week. They had no money to pay bills. There's so many things happening that
Madam, the question that I'm asking you.
I was a taxpayer in Lagos.
Yeah, just 1 second, years. Madam, if you can hear me.
When you look at the money that is being spent.
Madam, just 1 second, if you can hear me. The question that I'm asking is, how do people, the constituents in the various states, 36 states of Nigeria, begin to call out their government, hold their governments accountable? All we can do here in the studio, there in Abuja, here in Lagos, is to raise the issues and call people to attention so that they can focus on these things. Mr. Oluwadare speaking here the other time said, budget, for instance, has provided a platform that people can go check out. So how do you suggest that the people in the states, in Sokoto State, in Zamfara State, in Borno State, in Bauchi State, in Kebbi State, call their governments out and hold them accountable for the responsibilities on their hands?
Thank you. We have public accountability forum in different states across the country. We also have the tax justice civil society organizations. We have so many civil societies around. Civil society organizations, we are calling on all citizens. If we don't hold government accountable, they are not going to be accountable. If we don't hold, transparency and accountability is an issue. Openness and transparency is, when you have the corruption perception index, a lot of the reasons why some countries are scoring higher is that they open their books to the public and say, come and look at what we're doing. But we're talking about the Auditor General's report. Even at the federal level, most of these documents, one of the Auditor Generals was very, very, courageous to make a whole presentation, and nobody has taken it seriously. So many agencies are not giving reports to even the federation account, and they are getting money. And then it's not only in terms of the budget release, the budget, having the budget, timely release of the funds. Many of the funds are not released. Maybe now they are releasing some funds now, and there is no way they can spend it. Okay. And the rule is that by 15th of December, you turn back the money, and so on. So we're calling on civil society organizations, citizens, don't leave it to civil society organizations.
Okay.
The quality of citizenship is being dealt with. The courage to be able to stand for truth. And if we are not holding people accountable, I think there's a lot of insanity in the land. They are stealing everything. They are taking all the money of the country, and we are getting poorer. This is one of the greatest countries in the world.
All right,
we have money.
Let me quickly take on Mr. Lemo, because just so we can do a little better with timing. Mr. Lemo, I'm sure you've seen some of those issues that have been raised in the reports and even in public domain now. By the way, I went on the Public Procurement Agency's website. I saw all of the reports from January 2023 to, I think, October or November 2023, but July is missing. I wonder why. Anyway, look at this. One of the issues that has been raised is the Lagos State government spending on provision of furniture items at campaign office. It's also one of the issues, perhaps, in the same vein that Mr. Rosevival also raised. What do you make of this? Is it something that should be happening? Should government, any government at all, and Lagos State government in this case, be spending money to fund their political campaigning and all of that? Is it something that is proper? Is it part of the governance? Is that the reason for a political party winning the elections?
Absolutely not, really. Absolutely no. It's laughable And when you see this kind of line items, I wonder what agency of government has that line item. But in curing some of this terrible behavior is to further buttress what Kolawole said right there in Lagos. The role of the legislature. You see, when the budgets are prepared at the agency level, it's not open to the public. So the public doesn't have the opportunity to make inputs into that budget that is prepared at the agency level. What we often see is the consolidated budget that is presented by the chief executive, whether the president or the governor, as the case may be. And it's only after that budget has been presented to the parliament that whichever agency is responsible then now uploads it for citizens to now begin to interact with the data there. But the legislators at the state assembly, they have access. They see it. You wonder the kind of role they play around the budget process. Whether they look at these line items by line items and query it and ask questions as to whether these things are healthy and where this money is going to. And if they are able to then approve that budget like that, what was the sense behind it? What was the sense behind it? But it is good that these things are coming forth now. What we then want to know whether funds have been released to such line items and truly whether procurement has been initiated to then make such furniture available to the campaign office. Okay. But certainly that is irresponsible. Okay. You want to separate political activities away from how governance is run. But sometimes politicians sort of mix up these things. What I suggest that citizens do is that, for instance, it's difficult, like what Madam Enobi is saying here, the poverty level. So you can hardly have an ordinary citizen, pick up the budget document or an audit report and begin to read it for what?
All right, Mr. Lemon, let me quickly come back to Mr. Oluwadare.
Labor unions.
Yes, just a second. Let me come back to Mr. Oluwadare. I believe my colleagues in Abuja will also want to ask you a question or two. But looking at the issues raised by Mr. Doherty, looking at the responses of the Lagos state government, how satisfactory are the issues for you?
No, not satisfactory. As a matter of fact...
Even the comments of the governor?
Yes, not satisfactory. The idea behind the response is good, because there is a response, that is good. But the substance of the response itself is not good enough. As had been said earlier, the figures, if it was a mistake, it would not add up. That's just logic, that's just fact. And then as to the basis for some of those budgets, again, it is not satisfactory. Those amounts can hardly be justified to the hungry Nigerian, and it's not enough.
Okay. Well, let me reiterate that we indeed invited the Lagos state government. We're still waiting for their response. So I'll take this back to my colleagues in Abuja. Chamberlain, Mawakwe.
Well, yeah, so as we wind down now, madam and gentlemen, so moving forward, what would you want to see? Because, I mean, if the office of the chief of staff has vehicles of what, 440 million, you can imagine how much the office of the governor will have for vehicles. What do you want to see moving forward?
I think it's a shocking revelation, but these things have been there, and we want to call on the citizens, because there used to be budget hearing. There should be openness in terms of budget hearing, and these processes have been truncated over the years. Like you bring a budget, overnight it is passed. That is not allowed, because this is a law about everybody. If you are not accountable for the money that you are seeing, it means you are truncating the system, and you are also responsible for many deaths along the line. They are killers. And so we call on the civil society organizations. Lagos is a case in question, but we should look at all other states across the federation to look at their budgets. We insist on budget hearing, look at the budget details. Some people don't publish their own budgets, but a number of states now do publish. And we encourage that they look at, they are able to interact with their environments as well. But one thing that we need to also address is the capacity of the parliamentarians. We used to do a lot of capacity building, so I encourage, international partnership, budget partnership and the all the budgets and the host of others to continue to support the parliamentarians. Because even at the national level, we try to do that. If you are on health, for example, we look at the health budget for last year, this year, and the next one, what to look at and all of that. And so it's important for us to open our minds, and that citizens have a responsibility to hold government accountable. It's a position, it's a responsibility, it's an obligation to be able to, I really worry about the quality of the Nigerian, how accountable we are, and we must be able to project to that. Truth will live, it's a great country, we have these resources. Why go to spend money on an environment you want to buy one car for 400 and something million when people are not feeding? Are you in your right senses? Is there something we are missing here? And they are doing it also at the federal level, the parliament and all of that. The political classes, a major part of them are wasted.
Yeah, I think much of the issues have been touched on. But what I want to say is that of course, we all know that budget is a law, right? Budget is a law. It's an appropriation law and must be implemented. So what goes into it, whether furniture for the governor's wife or kitchen utensils for housemaid, it has to be implemented. Once it goes into that document, the governor must, the relevant agency must release funds and all that. So before it becomes a law, what happens at the parliament level? They need to scrutinize it more properly and ensure that, what should go in actually goes in. Now, like I said, when the budgets are prepared at the agency level, citizens don't have access to it. But when they go to parliament, legislators have access, and they need to question and query some of these line items, to ensure that there is some sort of responsibility. What we're doing at our own level is to continue to support actors at the state level, and we have a project now supporting 5 states, including, Anambra, Ekiti, Kaduna, Yobe, and one other state. To support, legislators and actors to ensure that, they behave more responsibly and accountable.
We want to thank both of you for coming on. Madam Enobi is the immediate past country director for Action Aid, as well as former convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation. We've also had Olusegun Elema, who is executive director, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, PLSI. Thank you both for coming on. Ayo.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, good governance advocate, human rights activist, and Deputy Director, Sarah. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll take on our last issue for the day. Do stay with us.